What's going on, everybody? My name is Colton, and welcome to the 2025 edition of putting all 32 NFL teams into a tier list. I have created 6 tiers to place these teams in. We start at the top. They're all pretty self-explanatory. We start with Super Bowl or bust. This is the top, the cream of the crop, elite of the elite. We have strong playoff teams that I definitely foresee being in the playoffs. We have playoff hopeful, kind of those fringe playoff teams. We have frisky, the teams that maybe I don't think are going to make the playoffs, but I could see them making a push and maybe being a spoiler down the stretch. We have mid, very self-explanatory, just a very bleh team. Going to struggle, and then what are we doing here, which is just the basement of the league. So we're going to start with the Arizona Cardinals, and we are going to place them right on into mid. I think this team, year after year, has a very certain ceiling. It's very consistently inconsistent. They did add Josh Sweat, which I love. I think that's a big addition for them. But it just still screams like a 9-8 at best type of team. Kyler Murray continues to be, I think this is year 7 for him. He continues to be an up-and-down quarterback. He has flashes of greatness, but he just never really puts together a full season. Marvin Harrison Jr. has to be better this year. He was obviously the most hyped guy in that locker room last year, and he just never really got in sync with Kyler. I think if the Cardinals want to be a threat in the NFC West, that connection has to develop. And then Trey McBride is amazing. They do have some talent on that offense. James Conner is getting a little older, though. They do have Trey Benson as a backup running back, who I kind of like. But overall, I just can't see the Cardinals threatening to make a deep playoff push or even make the playoffs to begin with. At the end of the day, this is a team with a mid-defense, a mid-offensive line. Everything about them just screams average at best. All right, next one, we got already a very interesting one here with the Bengals. I kind of did this in a random order. Didn't go by division or alphabetically or anything, but we got the Bengals. I'm going to put them into playoff hopeful. It's so tough because it's just a polar opposite situation. You have this amazing, amazing offense and this absolutely abysmal defense. When push comes to shove, I just think the Bengals offense is too good. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins are all too good to miss the playoffs back-to-back years. And the defense, of course, is a huge question mark. Trey Hendrickson still, at the time of recording this, that situation's not figured out. But they don't have to be, a top 10 to 12 defense. They just need to be like a top 20 defense. They just can't be like a bottom 10 unit. And I think that will support the offense enough to do what they need to do. Chase Brown is a guy I love in fantasy this year. Definitely get him. I think really you can't go wrong. Anybody offensively, this team is going to put up points. The offensive line does need to be better. They need to protect Burrow. That's obviously been a problem in the past. I can't put them any higher than playoff hopeful just because there are too many question marks on the offensive line and defensive side of the ball. But if I had to bet today if they make the playoffs, I could absolutely see them. I would absolutely say they get like a 6 or 7 seed. Next up, we got the Miami Dolphins, and this is a team I really feel like I was the first one to be a Dolphins hater, or at least be like, this team is not going to ever make a deep playoff run. When the whole Tua, Tyreek, when everything came together, Mike McDaniel hype, I just always thought this team was overrated. I always thought as soon as that weather got below 40, they could never win a game, and it seems to have proven true year after year. I'm going to put them in mid. I don't think they're very good. This defense, this secondary outside of Minkah Fitzpatrick is awful. They have holes everywhere. They do have Jalen Phillips. They do have a couple of guys, but I do not trust Tua. I worry for Tua's health behind this offensive line. He's like one head injury away from being done. And let's be honest, do you really want to see this team go into Baltimore, go into Kansas City, go into Buffalo in January just to get smoked again? Like we saw this before. If the temperature goes below 40, you see Mike McDaniel freezing on the sideline, Tua's cold, they cannot win in December, January. They might have a decent September, and maybe they'll win a few games, maybe surprise some people, but I don't think Tua will have the time, the protection to really use the weapons downfield, and then the defense I think is going to be pretty bad. So Dolphins I think are mid. Next up, we have the Indianapolis Colts. This is an interesting one. They have made the decision to go with Daniel Jones to start the year. I really like the draft pick of Tyler Warren. I think he's going to be an immediate weapon to complement guys like Michael Pittman Jr. and Josh Downs, Alec Pierce. They got guys on offense. They still have a pretty strong offensive line. They got Jonathan Taylor, but I just don't know a ceiling much higher than 8 or 9 wins with Daniel Jones, and the defense isn't anything to write home about, so I'm going to put the Colts into gonna struggle. I think it's going to be a rough year for Colts fans. I also think there's a weird thing going on with Shane Steichen and that culture after some of the answers last year. I think I mentioned it on the Cover 4 podcast we did last season. I just have there's a weird vibe going on in Indy, and I think they have to correct that. And for the foreseeable future, I think the Colts are going to be in this weird rebuild / struggling to find their identity type of era. Next up, we have the Jets, and I'm going to have them join the Colts in gonna struggle. I think Justin Fields is fine. I think Aaron Glenn is a great hire. I think he's going to really reset the culture in New York. They still have a boatload of talent from Garrett Wilson, Quinnen Williams, Quincy Williams, Will McDonald, of course, Breece Hall. They got a lot of dudes when you look at the roster, but I just don't think it comes together into anything super dangerous because I don't trust Justin Fields, and they're in the AFC. I think they're just going to have a year where they're going to be a ground and pound team. They're going to, play good defense. They'll keep some games close, but I just don't think they have enough to win the one possession games, beat the really good teams. I just see a year where the Jets are going to struggle a lot. Next up, we got the San Francisco 49ers. I will put them, this is a tricky one, because they obviously have had high expectations year after year. They dealt with a ton of injuries last year. I'm going to put them below the Bengals in playoff hopeful. People are always going to hype up this team and thinking they're a juggernaut. I've never thought Brock Purdy was elite. He finally lost the Avengers he had around him, and they won like 6 games. Like at some point, the proof is in the gameplay. Like, soon as he lost all these amazing threats and he had just like an average team, he wasn't that game-changing quarterback that a lot of people make him out to be. Now, there was reasonable excuses with his team. They dealt with the most injuries in the league. It was detrimental to this offense and defense. I almost want to put them in frisky and a tier down, but they still have CMC returning healthy. They got Ayuk, they got Kittle, they got guys, and Kyle Shanahan is an amazing play caller, so I will give them the benefit of the doubt. I do think the Super Bowl window is pretty slam shut for the 49ers, but I do think they are a playoff hopeful this year. All right, the New England Patriots. Living in Massachusetts, I think that vibe is starting to come back with people getting excited for Patriots football. I still think they are just frisky. I think they'll be a lot better than they were last year. I think Mike Vrabel is the biggest difference maker that they made this offseason. I think he's a fantastic coach. And I was originally going to actually put the Patriots in playoff hopeful, but in looking deeper at the roster, they still are a ways away. They have a lot of holes. Stephon Diggs, I don't love the contract, but at least he should provide some stability at wide receiver. But then the guys, got guys like Mac Hollins, Mario Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, like guys that really aren't needle movers. I am a big Drake May fan. He does have Will Campbell now. That was a great pick. I think we're going to start to see some things come together for the Patriots. I think they're going to upset some teams, get some wins you might not think. And if they really reach the top of their ceiling, I do think they can make a wild card in the AFC. The Buffalo Bills, man, here we go again. I'm going to put them right up top in Super Bowl or bust. It's been where they have been for the past 4 or 5 years. It just comes down to in January, can they beat the Chiefs year after year? And year after year so far, they have not been able to do so. It's the same old story. Josh Allen, I think, is the second best quarterback in football. I was really high on Dalton Kincaid, interested to see how he does. I was drafting him pretty early in fantasy. I thought he was going to have a breakout season. He really, really underperformed. Was probably one of the most, underwhelming players in the league for me last year. I'm hoping he has a better season. Then you got guys like Elijah Moore and Joshua Palmer that I think are sneaky additions to, aid Khalil Shakir and James Cook on this offense. So I think the offense will hum like always. Defense is still pretty solid. Adding Joey Bosa to that mix will help the defense as well. So I think this is a complete team. It just comes down to let's wait and see in January if they can finally get over that hump. Next up, we got the Atlanta Falcons, and this one I was kind of back and forth on, but I'm going to stick them at the top of mid. I have been a Michael Penix fan since that year at Washington when they went to the college football playoff, and I kind of really fell in love with his game. I think he is an underrated quarterback. He had a lot of injuries in college, but I wanted the Seahawks to draft him, actually. I thought he was that good. I just don't trust the build of this team. The defense is still pretty bad outside of like Jesse Bates and AJ Terrell. They got guys that I don't really even know that well. I think Bijan and Drake London, they'll do their thing. Can Kyle Pitts someday be what he could potentially be? I don't know. We'll see what Michael Penix can do with this offense. He played a couple games in 2024 and he looked, he only played a couple games, it was up and down. But I think with a full season in front of him, I think the Falcons will discover a lot of things. I think they're trending in the right direction, but they got to shore up that defense, and I just don't think this is the year for them to make a push, even in one of the weaker divisions in football. Los Angeles Chargers, a disappointing end to last season with that Texans loss in the playoffs. I do still think that this is a strong playoff team. They do have the offensive line problems with the Rashawn Slater injury. Can't ignore that. They still have a strong defense. They had I think the number one scoring defense in the league. I could be wrong on that, but I know they were an underrated defense. You didn't think they were a top 3 unit, and they really were for most of the season. They had a strong offensive line. Obviously, the injury I just mentioned shakes things up a bit, and they have an amazing quarterback. And a great coach. So they have all the critical pieces you would think. They got Hampton as a running back to go with Najee now. That'll be interesting. I think they're going to have to rely a little bit more on the run game. They're in an incredibly tough division, probably the toughest division in football in my opinion. So it does concern me with the injury, with the schedule, but I still think the Chargers are too good to miss the playoffs. I will put them in strong playoff team. The Buccaneers, by nature of the division or otherwise, I think are a strong playoff team as well. I really can't find a reason why the Bucs won't win this division again in 2025. Baker Mayfield has had such a resurgence of a career. Not even resurgence, because he was good in Cleveland. I don't think they should ever let him go. He had that stint in Carolina where he kind of disappeared, but he is back. In the past few years, watching Baker has been really enjoyable. Mike Evans is a 1,000-yard machine. Bucky Irvin really came into his own last year in his rookie season. The defense is good enough, and they have a strong offensive line anchored by Tristan Wirfs. So I think the Bucs are just going to be their usual consistent 11-6, 10-7 type team, which will be good enough to win the NFC South, in my opinion. And at this point, I trust Baker Mayfield more than I trust any other quarterback in that division by a pretty wide margin at this point. Next up, we got my boys, the Seattle Seahawks. I'm going to put them in strong playoff team. Now, that might piss some people off, but once again, par for the course of being a Seahawks fan, they are being underrated, kind of disrespected. Every year, they usually overperform the experts' opinions. And if you just look at this roster, man, they have dudes everywhere. This defense is amazing. They have Devin Witherspoon, Boye Mafe, Julian Love, Byron Murphy, Jaron Reed, Ernest Jones, Kobe Bryant, Leonard Williams, Tyrese Knight. Like, holy shit, this team is so talented defensively. And then you go to the offensive side of the ball, JSN, Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet, Cooper Kupp, I think, if he stays healthy, that's a good contract. The offensive line with the draft pick of Gray Zabel should be better. If Charles Cross and Abe Lucas can stay healthy, I think that'll really provide some stability up front. All of that with Mike McDonald in year 2 as a great defensive coach, everything's coming together. The glaring question mark, I will admit, is Sam Darnold. I was a pretty big fan of Geno Smith. I thought he never got his fair accolades. I think he was always better than people thought once he got to Seattle. But Sam Darnold now coming over from Minnesota, playing in that cozy dome with Kevin O'Connell as his coach, like a very offensive-minded guru. Now he comes over to rainy, wet, cold Seattle outside. I do have some concerns there. Totally fair. That is, if you're going to disrespect this team, it has to be from a Sam Darnold attacking point, and I understand that, but I just don't think, like, this defense is going to keep them, I think, in every game. They got weapons everywhere. If Sam Darnold can even be similar to what he was last year in Minnesota. Didn't even mention the draft pick of Torrey Horton, who I think is going to be a stud. This team is just so complete. Offensive line and quarterback, two very big factors in a playoff team, are still slightly up in the air, but I really do trust this roster. I love how it's being built. I actually am dumbfounded if people rank them below like 20th in the NFL. I am starting to see some respect come through for them. Some people ranking them inside the top 15, but I'm still seeing far too many like 22, 23, 24, that range, which is just insane to me. Not surprising because I know how the media and the sports world treats this team, but this team is going to be good. I feel like they are a strong playoff team. Next up, we got the New Orleans Saints, who I think are quite easily the worst team in football. I'm putting them in what are we doing here. Post-Drew Brees life has not been kind to this team. I don't have a lot to say. This team from top to bottom is just in a rebuild. They still have like Alvin Kamara, Cam Jordan, but guys are getting older. They have nothing that gets you excited. Even a guy like Chris Olave, like out of the Ohio State wide receivers, he was always the one that I was least high on. I literally can't even make this like a couple minute segment. Like, I don't have anything to say with the Saints. I think they are a 2 or 3 win team. Next up, we got the Denver Broncos, and this might be a hot take. I'm not going to put them in strong playoff team. I'm going to put them in playoff hopeful. Now, I think they have the best defense in football, arguably. Pat Surtain is probably the most electrifying defensive player. He's so good. Bo Nix is better than I thought, and I was pretty high on the guy coming out of Oregon. I think with Sean Payton and with year 2 in this offense, he's going to continue to grow. That being said, I still can't shake this feeling that the Broncos are a prime regression candidate with one other team in the NFC East that we'll get to. Are 2 teams that I have my eye on to potentially miss the playoffs. Now, if I had to bet today, I would say the Broncos probably sneak in. But in that division, I have some concerns. They don't really have a running game. They're going to use that like 3-headed monster approach again. That's their style, which is fine. Bo Nix is dual threat. Marvin Mims should be better, but they still, I don't know. I have a weird feeling about the Broncos. I could be wrong, but right now I'm going to put them at the top of playoff hopeful. Next up, the defending Super Bowl champs, right into Super Bowl or bust again this year. I'll put them at the top. They are the reigning champions for a reason, and they're pretty much still elite at every level. I mean, the defensive line will be good. The secondary will be good. Jalen Hurts coming back behind that offensive line, which is still a top 5 offensive line. Saquon coming off a historic season. You got A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith. You can go on and on. This team is loaded. They always, even when they lose a couple guys, Mekhi Becton and such, they always retool very quickly. They're really good at drafting. I think the Eagles are right back in the conversation for best team in football. I think this team can absolutely run it back. Next up, we have the New York Giants, and this is a tough one. They have my boy, Russell Wilson, who obviously is in the twilight of his career at this point. They have Jackson Dart, who they drafted, who I was excited about. I kind of wanted Seattle to take a look at him. I'm still going to put the Giants in the back half of mid, maybe above the Dolphins. We'll put them there. I'm kind of loosely ranking in between tiers here. Yeah, I think the defense is incredibly underrated. They'll have a great pass rush. They'll have a good, solid unit over there. I think Brian Dable being a defense coach always helps. Malik Neighbors is great, but let's be honest, this offensive line is pretty brutal. They were kind of a revolving door last year. I don't know how much better they will be this year. They're going Russell Wilson to start, but either way, Russell Wilson, older quarterback, Jackson Dart, a young rookie. You need some kind of consistency on the O-line. I just don't think they're capable of that. I don't think they have it. I don't really understand bringing Dable back and the message that sends this team. Like, they feel like in a very weird spot right now. I think they'll be better than last year, but I can't put them any higher than mid. Next up, we have the Minnesota Vikings, and this is a tough one because J.J. McCarthy hasn't played a snap of NFL regular season football, and I have to put them in the top of Frisky because of that, because I just don't know the ceiling of this offense. Is he immediately better than Sam Darnold? I don't think so. You still have Kevin O'Connell, who's an amazing coach, Justin Jefferson, a top 5 player in football, a defense that is rated pretty high, but I feel like is more kind of a middle-of-the-pack defense. I think I'm lower on them than most people, and they do have a strong offensive line. So we'll see how this team comes together, by the time we hit November. If J.J. McCarthy is as good as the Vikings clearly think he is. I mean, they moved off Sam Darnold after a 14-3 season or whatever it was. So I'm intrigued. What I would say to Vikings fans is be cautiously optimistic, because I think this team has an ability to make a playoff run, but right now I think they're just we'll see how good J.J. McCarthy is, frisky type of team. Los Angeles Rams, I'm going to put at the top of playoff hopeful for right now. I think, Stafford has some lingering injuries, some lingering back problems, which is a bit of a concern when you start getting, into your upper 30s as a quarterback. But this has been a consistent quarterback-coach duo. Sean McVay's, of course, great. This defense is so young, but came together so quickly. Jared Verse leading that charge. Still, I'm a little salty. I can't believe they won the division last year on that, the fourth tiebreaker or whatever it was with the Seahawks. But yeah, I think most people have them winning the division. I think it's going to be a good race between the Seahawks, Rams, and even the Niners maybe. I think it's going to be a tight division for most of the season. But right now, I'm just going to leave the Rams in the top of playoff hopeful. All right, Detroit Lions. Now, this is also going to be kind of a crazy one, but I'm going to put them right on the fringe of Super Bowl or bust. I'm going to put them as a strong playoff team, and it's really because of two names. The Ragnow and Zietler losses on the offensive line. That is big when you have a non-mobile quarterback like Jared Goff, who I think, excels when he has time like any quarterback, but more so when he doesn't really have that scrambling ability. We saw what he was earlier in his career. Now, with a little bit of a shakier offensive line, the Lions seem to be teetering on the spot where they had this Super Bowl window where, they were the most hyped team for the past 2 seasons. I just think this team could take a slight step back. I still would bet them to win the division. I still think they're going to be a strong playoff team, hence why I have them in this category. They still have A-plus talent across the board, from Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Porta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Aiden Hutchinson. They got guys everywhere. This still will be a good team. Just be cautious if you're thinking they're going to make a Super Bowl run, because right now I think we need to wait and see what that offensive line looks like. Tennessee Titans, what a weird team, because I was so high on them last year. I thought they were going to actually be like a 9-8 frisky team. I really thought they were going to be in that middle category. This year, I think they're going to struggle. They got Cam Ward. I think he will take time to develop. He has very average receivers and weapons. They had Tyler Lockett. I'm going to miss him in Seattle. He's decent, but he's older. Calvin Ridley. I do like the pick of Elick Aomanor. I don't know how to say his name. I do like that pick a lot. The aforementioned Kevin Zietler, I think, will be a big piece to add on this offensive line, but I think this is clearly a rebuilding year. It's almost as clear as it can be. Defense still isn't great, and let's be honest, they're going to be on the field a lot. So I think the Titans are going to lose a lot of games, but I think it'll be a little more fun than it was last year for them. Next up, we got the Bears, the off-season champion year after year. I think they're in frisky, and I'm going to put them right above the Patriots. I think they are a team that has finally found a coach in Ben Johnson that should elevate this offense. Can Caleb Williams take that next step? We will see. If he does, it'll be because of a lot of talent around him. Roman Dunze, year 2, DJ Moore, Colston Austin Loveland, tight end draft pick, who should immediately have a role. They still have Cole Kmet. Luther Burden was a good draft pick. There are guys everywhere in this offense. I think now is the time for Caleb Williams to take that next step. Offensive line, still a problem, but Caleb Williams has to minimize those sacks that were on him. He has to get rid of the ball. He has to make smart decisions. I think Ben Johnson will help him get there, and it really feels like this team could make the playoffs, but it all depends on that fast start, and I think they are in need of like a 3-1 September in order to get there. Pittsburgh Steelers, now this is a team, like, they just walk into those 9-8, 10-7 seasons and, barely make the playoffs, but they make it every year. I'm going to put them in playoff hopeful. Part of me feels like they should be lower, but I'm going to give them the respect. They have Aaron Rodgers now, who's going to be 42 in December, behind an offensive line that is pretty young. I think that's a recipe for disaster, potentially with an old quarterback and an inexperienced offensive line, and they also have like one receiver in DK Metcalf. I think their number 2 receiver, I could be wrong, on the depth chart now is Calvin Austin. That is concerning, to say the least. And their defense is always great on paper, but I feel like they always underperform. So TJ Watt has to lead this defense to be a top 5 to 7 unit, I think, in order for this team to see playoff success. And even that, I think they're on the back half of playoff hopeful. Next up, we got the Las Vegas Raiders. And this is a team that I'm going to put firmly in frisky. I think it's going to be a very fun team. You got Geno Smith coming over from Seattle. You got Ashton Genty, Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers, and of course Pete Carroll coming back out to coach at like 73 years old. I think this is going to be a really fun team. One of the most fun teams in football. I'm going to get to see them live at home against those Bears that they're right next to in September, which I think is going to be a very exciting matchup between two frisky teams. I think Geno remains a critically underrated quarterback. I kind of mentioned that before when we were talking about the Seahawks. And remember, this O-line will be better than what he had in Seattle, and he already did a pretty damn good job for the Seahawks. So I think with a slightly better offensive line, the defense is the biggest problem. I think they're going to give up a lot of points, so they're going to be in some shootouts. But again, I think this is a fun 8-9, 9-8 team that could, if they get hot, sneak into the playoffs. Kansas City Chiefs are going to be the third addition to Super Bowl or bust. I'll put them above the Bills because the Bills haven't earned being ahead of them really. As is the norm in the Patrick Mahomes era, it is Super Bowl or bust again. Since Mahomes has become the starter, the worst they have done is made the AFC Championship game. They have never been worse than that. That doesn't even feel real to say. It's actually insane. This team is just a model of consistency. Crazy that we've had this dynasty right on the heels of the Patriots dynasty. Rashee Rice is back this season. He probably will serve a suspension, but that's a big addition. He was looking like a wide receiver 1 for Mahomes. Kelsey is getting older, but has remained relatively productive. Until I see otherwise, this team is in the top 5 every year, no matter what. Next up, we got the Browns, who are going to join the Saints in what are we doing here? Because this team, I'll put them above the Saints. This team is pretty horrendous. I think if it wasn't for New Orleans, they would be dead last. The Deshaun Watson contract just ruined this team. They're now probably going to carry 4 quarterbacks into the season. Joe Flacco has been named starter, and then, of course, they got Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, and Kenny Pickett. This team just will not be good. Maybe their defense can surprise people. You still got Myles Garrett, I guess, so you can be happy about that, Browns fans. But, this is a basement team. It's crazy because this team really was turning it around under Baker Mayfield, and now they threw that all away when they got rid of him, and now are once again the laughingstock of football. Next up, we have the Baltimore Ravens, and they are going to go in Super Bowl or bust. I'm going to put them actually right ahead of Buffalo. I think the Ravens at this point are a shoo-in for 12-ish wins. Lamar Jackson is a top 3 or 4 quarterback. They have an amazing coach, a very solid defense. The only thing is the playoff woes of the past. I think they still will win this division. I think they will be pushed this year by the Bengals, but I still think they are very much better than Cincinnati and clearly better than Pittsburgh. Yeah, kind of similar to Buffalo. We'll see what they do in January, but right now I think they are firmly a top 5 team. All right, I alluded to a regression candidate when I was talking about the Broncos, and this is who I was talking about, the Washington Commanders. I am still going to put them in strong playoff team. They made the crazy run to the NFC Championship game a season ago. Jaden Daniels had a crazy rookie season. He was so fun to watch. The only issue I have is they won so many one-possession games. They won the Hail Mary game against the Bears. They won last-second touchdown wins against the Eagles and other teams. This team relied on a lot of magical moments, and I think coming back a year later, it's just hard to replicate that. This team still has a ton of talent. I think the Deebo Samuel addition is actually very interesting. I think he fits very well here, but they still can't stop the run defensively. They're still going to give up points. A lot is still going to be on Jaden Daniels' shoulders. I just think this team is still very good, still probably a playoff team. I have them in strong playoff team. I just would watch for aggression. I think this is the NFC version of the Broncos in terms of a team that made the playoffs last year and was surprising a lot and could take a little bit of a step back. Houston Texans, I will put at the back of strong playoff team. kind of virtue of the division, but also I think CJ Stroud will bounce back from a bit of a sophomore slump. This team still won a playoff game a season ago despite a lot of injuries. The Tank Dell injury was, of course, very tragic for this team. They lose Stephon Diggs, but they still have weapons. They had Christian Kirk to go along with Nico Collins. I just don't think anybody in this division is as good as the Texans are. His offensive line is horrible. We will say that. They need to upgrade there still. But the defense is pretty amazing. Will Anderson leading the charge. This defense will be fun. They'll create turnovers. I think the Texans will be right back in the playoffs this season. All right, we're getting a little crowded up top because I'm going to put the Packers in playoff hopeful as well. And we start to see, there's 14 teams that make the playoffs, and right now we have 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 teams in these top three categories. But of course, the playoff hopefuls, the idea is a couple of them will miss. We are getting a little top heavy, but I think that is good for the league. I think there's a lot of teams that will be vying for the playoffs, and the Packers are one of them. I always feel like this team should be better. I am a big Jordan Love fan. I drafted him in Dynasty a couple years ago. I think he is definitely the franchise guy. It's just a decent offensive line, a decent defense, decent receivers. There's a lot of decent, in this team. Josh Jacobs is good. They have a good coach. I think Matthew Golden is a key piece. If he can become a clear number one receiver, this team has really lacked a clear weapon, a go-to guy down the field. I know Christian Watson was supposed to be that. Then Jaden Reed would have stinkers of games, even though he's really good. They just need to find some consistency. I don't think this team is a Super Bowl caliber roster, but I do think they're pretty solid, and I think they will be at least flirting with the playoffs, if not firmly in there. So we get the Dallas Cowboys, and I will put them in the back of Frisky. They still have Dak Prescott. They added George Pickens to pair with CeeDee Lamb, but I have some concerns. The coaching staff is interesting, to say the least. Brian Schottenheimer, former Seahawks offensive coordinator. I've had my gripes with him back when they didn't utilize Russell Wilson correctly. I think the offense will still put up points. The Micah Parsons situation is concerning on a defense that you already can't really trust. They'll give up a lot of yards, probably a lot of points. The run game is now anchored by Javonte Williams or the rookie Blue. I don't really know where they're going there. I think this will be similar to the Raiders, a team that will put up points, will be fun to watch, but I don't see them making a deep push. Final two teams here, we got the Carolina Panthers, who I'm going to put at the top, right behind the Colts in gonna struggle. Bryce Young is definitely trending in the right direction, definitely buying stock with him. They had a really good draft, added some good weapons. The defense is still pretty atrocious. They're going to give up a ton of points. I think this is a multi-year rebuild. I think they're still a ways away from competing, but again, in a weaker division, I wouldn't be surprised if they win about 6 or 7 games. I think they will be visibly better than they were a season ago. And finally, the Jacksonville Jaguars, a very interesting team to end on. I am going to put them in Frisky. You think of mid as average. I kind of think of it as more of a negative connotation. I have that. That clearly isn't the middle tier. There's only 4 teams in there. But the Jaguars, I'm going to put in Frisky. I think Trevor Lawrence, it's now or never for the guy. He has weapons. He now has Travis Hunter to go along with a bona fide superstar in Brian Thomas Jr. They need to figure out the run game. ETN's kind of been falling off, and Tank Bigsby isn't quite there yet. The defense is still pretty shaky. The offensive line is still pretty shaky. But I think the difference is this year, at least they have those additional weapons to really elevate maybe T-Law's play. Weak division. I think this team could be a surprise playoff team. But for now, we'll put them in Frisky. So real quick, we'll go tier by tier here if we want to reshuffle anything. I think the Saints are clearly the worst team in football. I will leave them at the bottom. I will leave them at the bottom beside the Browns. Titans, Jets, Panthers, Colts, I have all in the gonna struggle tier. I will actually move the Jets in front of the Panthers. Jets might have some success if Justin Fields can be serviceable. In the mid tier, again, think of it more negative than average. I have the Dolphins, Giants, Cardinals, and Falcons. I'm good in that order. The Frisky tier, I have the Cowboys, Patriots, Bears. I'll give the Bears the benefit and move them up past the Jaguars and the Vikings, who I think will lead that charge in that category. They could be toward a strong playoff team. Remember, this was a team that won 14 games a season ago, so they still have a lot of potential. I am just concerned about J.J. McCarthy. The playoff hopefuls, the Steelers, who I think are on the fringe, everybody's favorite team, the 49ers, who everybody thinks every year are tremendous. I think they will be better, but still just a playoff hopeful. The Bengals, Broncos, Packers, and Rams, that looks good to me. I actually might switch the Packers and the Rams. No, I'll keep it. We'll keep Rams over the Packers in that order. The Texans, the Seahawks, the Bucks, the Commanders, Chargers, and Lions as strong playoff teams. Again, no disrespect to Lions fans. I think they're still great. I'm just concerned about that offensive line. And then I will keep this order of Bills, Ravens, Chiefs, Eagles as the Super Bowl or bust teams. And that rounds out my 2025 preseason tier list. Let me know below what you guys think. I know I have a couple of hot takes in here, but I really do like how this came out. it's an interesting curve here. We are a little top heavy, but I think, again, that is good. I'm excited about a lot of these teams. I think a lot of these teams have a lot of potential, so I think that's good for football. Thank you all so much for watching. It would mean a ton if you gave a like and subscribed, and I will see all of you guys very soon. Thanks for watching.